Good evening, everyone. I'm Carol Olson-Day of the New York Times, and I am so delighted to welcome you to this exciting Times Talks. What better way to kick off Independence Day weekend? We're live here in New York at the Times Center, and we're live around the world on timestalks.com. And tonight, we are enormously pleased to have as our special guests two performers who, for 40 years, have defied labels, redefining the genre of magic, and inventing their own place in comedy. They have had sold-out runs on Broadway, world tours, Emmy-winning TV specials, and hundreds of outrageous appearances on everything from Letterman to Fallon, Friends to The Simpsons, and Modern Family to Top Chef. And their new Broadway show, right here in New York, of course, begins July 7th and runs through August 16th at the Marquis Theater. You'll meet them and hear more about the show and their work in just a moment. But first, I'm delighted to introduce our moderator. And before that, to remind you to stay in your seats after tonight's talk to see if you are the winner of NewYork.com's $100 gift card to their site, which is a guide to the best shows, museums, and attractions that New York has to offer. And now a little bit about tonight's interviewer. He is senior staff editor on the culture desk for the New York Times, where he writes interviews and articles about stage and screen, and also spotlights theater talent in readings and scenes and musical numbers in a video section on nytimes.com called In Performance. Last Sunday, his article in the movie section looked at the stars of transgender writing and casting in films and on television. And he interviewed some of today's leading transgender actors, including Laverne Cox of Orange is the New Black. He'll be joining us in just a minute, but first, please join me in welcoming our very special guests, Penn and Teller.
How you doing? How you doing? Hello, hello, hello. My name is Penn Gillette's my partner Teller. We are Penn and Teller. We're going to start by doing something that's not part of the Broadway show, but was part of some of our other Broadway shows. We just thought we'd start with a little trick, if that's okay. You know, several years ago, we did a series of documentaries for television. We traveled all over the world seeing street magic or close-up magic in all different cultures. And almost every magician we met had a version of the same trick, the cups and balls. And they would, the trick didn't change very much all around the world, but the props did. And in China, they had these handcrafted metal cups that were handed down generation to generation. India, hand-carved wooden cups and these beautiful flocked cork balls they used. But we were representing the United States of America. So we used plastic cups and aluminum foil balls, and thus had the totally American and totally disposable cups and balls. Goes like this. We take the ball, we place it in our hand, we vanish it, it appears underneath the cup. That's the way it's done all around the world. You take the ball, you place it in your hand, you vanish it, and it appears underneath the cup. Here's a little variation Teller came up with, where he takes the ball, places it in his hand, then shows you underneath the cup, yet it still appears underneath the cup. Now we're all set up here. We got the 3 cups, 3 balls. You take the center ball, place it in the center cup, the 2 side balls, we put them away, and they still regroup underneath the center cup. These 3 balls, I come over here for just a moment, and then a giant ball appears in the center cup, 1 more on either side, and of course for the finish, it's an American baseball. That's an American baseball from America. Now, after doing the American cups and balls for a while, we wanted to kind of zoom in and do a Penn and Teller cups and balls, which involves breaking a few rules of magic. Now, the first rule of magic is you never do the same trick twice. So we're going to do the same trick twice. Second rule of magic is you never tell an audience how a trick is being done. So we're going to tell you exactly how the trick is being done. The third rule of magic is you never let the audience see your secret preparation. They must not know what is hidden in which pocket. And the fourth rule of magic is unwritten, but we think any magician in the world would agree with us in a second, that you never, ever do the cups and balls with clear plastic cups. So here's the Penn and Teller version of the cups and balls. We did the first ball, pretend to place in our hand, have already snuck underneath the first cup. To the second ball, simultaneously secrete it beneath the cup, place in our hand and show it. To the third and final ball, pretend to place in our hand, pretend to show it in the cup, place it in the cup, then secretly secrete it and reveal it. Now we're all set for the second half, 3 cups all loaded, 3 balls on top. Center ball, center cup. These are the side balls where you put them away, we don't need them more. We have 3 duplicates underneath here. These 3 balls, this is not juggling. This is called misdirection. Boy, look over here, tells you his final ball under, 1 more to the side. And of course, for the finish, it's an American baseball right there. It's an American baseball. That's a Penn and Teller cups and balls. Yeah.
All right, well, let's get this conversation started with my first question on the list here. This is a good one. Will Teller speak tonight?
Fuck yeah.
What's the origins of not speaking? Where did that start, or where did that come from?
For me, it was a rebellion against magic patter, which always seemed to me silly or insulting in some way. You know, it would be, you know, here I have a rabbit. Well, that's generally obvious to the spectator. Or it would be something like, you know, a 13-year-old kid saying, I am 200 years old and I traveled through time to entertain you here. That was actually a line that I had in my act when I was about 13. And I realized later how embarrassing that was. And so it started as that, and then I became interested in the idea of lying without speaking. You know, presenting ideas, presenting actions in such a way that the audience themselves had to lie to themselves about what they were. And then after I did that for a while, I began to discover that it was a really good discipline tactic. You know, if I would play a rough circumstance, if I tried to shout people down, I mean, just look at me, you know, you'd overwhelm me. But if I came in and undercut that and just put, you know, some bright lights on me and turned all the rest of the lights off and did creepy stuff, people attended to it. And then finally, in the last few years, I've realized that it's an amazingly intimate way to communicate with a group of people. Because if you don't have the comfort of conversation, you have this moment where you have to really look at someone and they have to look back at you. And that's a tremendous feeling of intimacy.
Well, take me back to that. You mentioned 13-year-old boy. Take me back to that. You know, if you talk to a theater person about their light bulb moment, that show or that performer as a kid that they saw, that really sort of said, hey, that's something I'd like to do, or sort of planted that seed of really loving theater. Do you have that for magic? Do you have a person or something that you saw 13 or even younger that you said, boy, that's something that I'd like to do?
I don't have, well, I do have a person. I guess it's Clarabelle the Clown on the Howdy Doody show. Oh, good. Some of my contemporaries here. Originally, my parents used to tell me it was 4, but I couldn't have been 4 when it happened. But I was 5 and got really sick and had to stay home for a long period of time. And we had a TV, which was about this big at the time, and I watched the Howdy Doody show. And Clarabelle the Magic Clown offered a Howdy Doody magic set for 50 cents and 3 Mars bars wrappers. And I sent away for it, and it arrived. Now, you sort of picture a magic kit arriving, you know. Well, no, it was a flat envelope this big, you know, and you took the pieces of cardboard out and you tabbed them together to form little boxes and things. And I just played with this obsessively. I played with it obsessively. And just fell profoundly in love with the idea of the notion that things could look different from the way they really were. And I think that's at root what fascinated me there. And when I turned 60, my very best friend in the world gave me as a birthday present, said, I checked the internet and I checked eBay, and there was this person on eBay advertising a Howdy Doody magic set of the same model that Teller had as a kid. And man, I took that thing out of the package and I just went to pieces because I hadn't seen those images for so long.
Yeah.
You know, the little rabbit that pops out of the hat with a rubber band on the back.
Penn, do you have a similar story that affected you as a kid?
Well, I never liked magic and still don't. I was repulsed by it. I was a juggler. I liked music, and I learned to juggle. And juggling is, the opposite of magic. You're trying very, very hard to you don't misrepresent what you're doing. It's purely skill-based. Jugglers do things because they're hard, and magicians do things to try to make them as easy as possible. Impossible things make easy. And I also was very, very offended by the idea that people weren't telling the truth. I always thought that the purpose of art was to tell more truth and not less truth. And then it wasn't until I met Teller that I really had any interest. I did some card tricks when I was younger, but it was card tricks that really came out of juggling, heavy memorization stuff or sleight of hand that was just what's called finger flinging. I never really cared very much about the deception. That never, and still doesn't really interest me very much. It is the fact that by exploring how trickery is done, you can kind of get to the truth. But it wasn't until I met Teller. I mean, magicians to me were just people that were on Ed Sullivan that stopped me from seeing The Who. Get this schmuck off so I can see Keith Moon. Some greasy guy in a tux with a lot of birds torturing women in front of Mylar to bad rip-off Motown music. Not my thing.
So you're back on Broadway now after about 15 years or so. Were you theater kids at all? Was growing up either in theater or going to the theater, was that part of your experience?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You were in shows in high school?
My next door neighbor went to an Anglican church. I didn't go to an Anglican church, but they had a drama organization there, and I went to, played the kid in little Western comedies. And then in high school, I had a really extraordinary English teacher and drama coach, David G. Rosenbaum, whom we called Rosie, who looked exactly like the devil, and it was not an accident. And he was also a magician, had been a magician since he was a kid. And we got into pretty heavy discussions about this strange position that magic occupies in the theater, where normally when you see a play, you know it's make-believe and you voluntarily suspend your disbelief. Whereas magic is this weird thing where you're sort of involuntarily suspending your disbelief. And that makes it a very curious, ironic kind of form.
Tell me a little bit about this Broadway show. What can we expect in this? It's been 15 years since you were there. What can we expect from this?
Well, what we tried to do, this is kind of, we're getting wicked old. And we've been out in Vegas now for, over 20 years. We've been to the same theater. We're now the longest running headliners in Vegas history. And how'd that happen? It seems like all I have to really do in life is not want to do something, and I have a great deal of success. I didn't want to really go to Broadway, didn't want to really go to Vegas, didn't want to really do magic, do it fine. So for this show, in Vegas, most all performers in Vegas, they get a show together somewhere else. Usually in Vegas nowadays, it's either New York or Montreal. And they get a show together and they get a great deal of success with that show. Then they move it to Vegas and it just stays there. There's very little economic pressure to change shows in Vegas because the audience is changing. So it's kind of like you're touring without moving. So people keep the shows identical for 20 years in Vegas. We did not go to Vegas for that reason. So we're always writing new stuff because we work together in order to write together. I mean, I don't have as much interest in the performing as I do in the writing. And so we try to put new stuff in all the time. But this time, coming back to Broadway and having been 40 years we've been working together, and having it been so long since we've been on Broadway, we decided to really put together kind of the ultimate Penn and Teller show. Not a greatest hits, not the most popular stuff, but the stuff that kind of swung together just kind of right. So we're trying to do with this show the definitive Penn and Teller show, so that then if we die in a plane crash on the way back, we've kind of wrapped it up very, very nicely for the TV movie. And all I'm hoping for that is that it's not on Lifetime. It's my one dream. All he wanted was for his biography not to be on Lifetime. Please. It's one dying wish. He begged us all.
So, peel back the curtain a little bit. If you're writing a play or a musical, you sit down in a room or at a piano and sort of work things out. How do you work out a magic trick? Do you get together in a room? You fight? That's how it kind of comes together? Yeah.
No, yeah, we really do. You know, we try to. We've been saying this for a long time, and it's partially a lie. You know, we try to say that we don't start with the trick, we start with the idea, and that's often not true. There's often a principle of a trick or something or an image that interests us. But I really think that there has to be a really compelling intellectual idea, or I don't want to do the trick. It's really not enough for me at all. I have no interest in just doing a trick that just fools people. It has to have a lot more with it. And we bang stuff out. Now, we're really, really slow. I mean, one of the tricks we'll be doing, we've never done outside of Vegas, it's so big and unwieldy, but a trick called Elsie with the African spotted pygmy elephant that we're vanishing on stage. Some say it's a cow dressed up in an elephant suit, but no, it's an elephant. And that trick we worked on over 6 years, and we just banging on it. And one of the things that's so wonderful about being in Vegas is that we are at the conveniently named Penn and Teller Theater, and we can do whatever the hell we want. Yeah. I mean, it's really funny that we always had on Broadway the deal that we could do whatever we wanted. You know, Penn and Teller show is whatever Penn and Teller want. And that's wonderful. But in Vegas, we have more freedom than that, which is the freedom that nobody cares. The casino people that book us don't even know what show we're doing. They have bigger fish to fry. They have slot machines to handle. So we just do our show and people leave us alone. So we were able to really pound on things. You know, we have enough material now to last us the rest of our lives. We don't need to write anything new. So we're only writing stuff new now because we love doing it, which, you know, was the big reason the whole time, I suppose, but it's even more in high relief now. So we can really spend time doing stuff that's just really, really hard. So we tend to, if we pitch a trick to one another or pitch an idea to one another, the thing that sells it now to the other one is, you know, we may not be able to do this. This may be too hard. No one else could do this. This is impossible. And the idea of dressing a cow up as an elephant, you know, we wanted to do well, no, we wanted to do, the one thing we hadn't done was we hadn't done big livestock. You know, we hadn't done, you know, Siegfried and Roy do elephants and tigers, and Houdini did an elephant, and it's a branch of magic we'd never done. And yet we couldn't do a tiger or an elephant because that's too spot on. That's not funny to us, it's not interesting. So we got the idea that'd be really funny to vanish a cow, because cows are heavy and stupid. So I have a kind of it's kind of my totem animal. So we got the idea in our head years ago, probably 15 years ago, that doing something with a cow would be really, really funny. And also it's really, really difficult. But then again, you can't come out and say we're vanishing a cow because it's funny, because then that's too on, you're explaining the joke, you might as well be on TV. So we needed some angle on that. We kind of stumbled into the angle of, well, if we dress the cow up as an elephant and call it an elephant and say we're vanishing an elephant, then the audience gets to laugh at us instead of with us. We're not telling them what's funny. It's not smarmy. It's kind of allowing us to be ridiculed by them, which is always more fun. And so then we started working on this, and we decided that while we were doing this, we might as well make it the hardest trick ever done with livestock. So we're doing it surrounded by audience members holding hands. You can see under the platform, over the platform, and all the sides are covered. So it is an impossible trick that we would like to think that we make funny and stupid enough that people don't notice how hard the magic is till they get home. And it's also really short. I mean, we work 6 years on a bit, and then it runs 3 minutes in the show. And these are all things we're really proud of at this point in our career, that nothing is milked, nothing is dragged out, and that we like to do the hardest tricks you've ever seen and try to conceal the fact that the magic's that good.
You say that you have enough material to last the rest of your lives.
We're not going to live long, sir.
Well,
look at us.
Teller, I'm just curious, where do you catalog these? Do you have a book of ideas, or is it somehow digitized, or do you go back to them? I'm just trying to get a sense of the process.
We sort of vaguely remember them. You know,
Okay.
I mean, there's one piece in the show which is now a decade or two old, but we started talking about. We were driving to the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, and we were talking about, wouldn't it be great to do a really cheesy trick and attribute it to God? You know, that is, present a really cheesy trick as though it were a genuine miracle, and present
A time-honored tradition.
Yeah. But we would do it a little more honestly. And then that idea just floated around for years and years and years. And then something like 20 years ago, I stumbled across an old piece of magic called the turban trick, and we adapted that and improved it and modified it and turned it into the piece. So now the miracle that Teller the Savior performs is the healing of a piece of polyester. And polyester, I should tell you, this is a nice secret about that. If you see the show, you'll see this polyester. And the polyester just didn't look good enough for us. So you're actually watching beautiful China silk being called polyester just to make it appear more cheesy.
And you know, we also had, you know, I have many files of ideas and stuff I pull out and cut and paste and think about. But I was obsessed, and this is not in the Broadway show, it's in the Vegas show, but we didn't bring it here because it's just, we're trying to keep things short enough. But I was obsessed with a soldier's deck of cards, which is a thing that Tex Ritter did back in 1948. And it's a talk song where a guy explains that there's a soldier in church with a deck of cards, and his commanding officer comes over and says, you have a deck of cards in a house of worship, you're going to be court-martialed for this, which, I mean, that brings up all sorts of, you know, state-church separation, but that's not an important part of it. And he says, oh, no, sir. This deck of cards is not a gambling apparatus. It's my prayer book. It's my almanac. It's my Bible. And the ace reminds me that there is but one God. And the deuce reminds me that there's Old Testament and New Testament. And the tray reminds me that there's Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. And then it is this wonderful, overextended, sappy religious metaphor that I have been in love with forever. And I would always try to come up with something. I tried when Bob Dylan did Lily Rosemary and the Jack of Hearts on the Blood on the Tracks album. We tried to do a card trick to that, and that didn't work. And I always wanted to do one of these story songs. And then finally, after talking about this really for 35 years and getting limited interest from Teller, you know, it's horrible, but it's a song that I listen to over and over again.
But we both love overextended metaphors.
Love them.
Let me not.
And also, Wink Martindale had a cover of it in the early '60s where he changed to Vietnam, because why wouldn't you? Then we teamed up with Lawrence Krauss, the physicist, and decided that instead of being in church, Teller would be at a lecture with at Lawrence Krauss playing with a deck of cards, and Lawrence would look down and say, why are you playing with that deck of cards? Aren't you listening to my lecture? And Teller would go, no, 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 no. This deck of cards explains everything about the universe. And then we would go on with pretty advanced astrophysics, all being explained with an overextended metaphor in a deck of cards. And that took us a long time because I play upright bass, but didn't sound good with upright bass. So we thought it would sound good with guitar, so I had to learn to play guitar to be able to do the bit. And then Teller, well, I mean, I guess you should confess this, but I'll just rat you out. Teller's not very good at card tricks. kind of sort of sucks. So you had to learn card tricks almost from scratch.
Yep.
And I had to learn guitar, and that took us a couple years to put in the show. And now we have, you know, the atheist deck of cards in our show in Las Vegas, and we are doing heavy atheist proselytizing
With physics patter.
with physics patter in Las Vegas. Thank you.
One of my favorite things about that bit is when we do it in the Deep South. No, because when we appear in Memphis, every atheist, you know, from a range of 600 miles, collects at our show. And when we come out and begin this physics lecture that's pro-atheism, the house just comes down. It's wonderful.
I want to get back to atheism in a minute, but
Me too.
yeah. Tell us how the two of you met.
Oh, that's your cue, isn't it?
That's my cue.
Okay, yeah. We met not very interesting way. I bought a stereo when I was in high school from a guy that Teller went to college with. Teller had graduated from college and was teaching high school the whole time I was in high school, but different schools. Not that good a story. If he'd stayed on another year, he would have teamed up with Jon Stewart, right? Because he would have been your student the next year. But he left too early, so I got him instead of Jon Stewart. And I saw Teller when I was still in high school. As I said, I disliked magic tremendously, but I met Teller and we got to talking, and Teller told me that the stuff that I didn't like about magic, which overwhelmed my understanding of magic, was the stuff he didn't like about magic. And maybe we could do magic without insulting the audience. Maybe we could do magic like other forms of showbiz were done, instead of, as Jerry Seinfeld says, all magic is, here's a quarter, now it's gone, you're a jerk, now it's back, you're an idiot, show's over. And I saw Teller. I was very interested in freak shows and sideshow, and I was very interested in honest performance. And I went down to Jersey, and I saw Teller like in a library basement. At least that's what we're saying now. It's been so many years, we've told the story so many times, that there certainly is no truth left in it whatsoever. But I think it was in or I'm saying it was in a library basement that I saw Teller do it. I saw him do this trick right here. I got here an apple, and stuck into this apple are 100 size number 6 embroidery needles. Now, if you could just stand up here and just take any one of those needles out. Can you just do that? Any one you like? And just make sure it's a real needle. Don't hurt yourself, but make sure that it's sharp and it is made of metal. Just put it right back in the apple anywhere you want. Now, Teller's found someone to watch this from on stage. He'll need someone watching him rather closely, because these are the objects he's going to be using. They'll be pretty small. There'll be these 100 needles and 6 feet of white thread. Teller's East Indian needle mystery. This is off, right? Certainly drags on. It's going okay, right? I texted Emily. Tell her he's doing needles. Watch it. Don't look at your phone. No. You out to get me? Tell her I don't think like me wandering around the stage. What's it? All we have to do is Thank you.
So we'll have a little more of a discussion, and we do want to save some time coming up for some questions from the audience. But just sort of watching that made me think there's so much about magic that has to do with sort of the macabre and cheating death or sort of dark.
Yeah, you know, just recently there was a there was in the press there was a magician putting together a show, and there was an accident, and ran in and saved one of the performers who could have been in deep, deep trouble. And a lot of people came to me and texted me and emailed me and so on and asked if I saw the video, which I didn't say. I didn't watch the video. I try not to watch any videos where people could possibly be in real jeopardy. I'm just uninterested in seeing it. And they asked, you know, this is so fake. This is a PR thing. And whether it was real or a PR thing, I find both immoral and appalling. I find them an insult to entertainment. A lot of people think, and Hillary Clinton, when she kicked off her last campaign for president way back, the first thing she did was came out against video games. You know, they're violent and they're doing this and that. And that profound profound misunderstanding, plus the hatred of youth, but the profound misunderstanding of art. When a 14 or 15-year-old boy or girl becomes obsessed with the macabre and scary stuff, and put rubber cement on their face and make it look like they're horrible burn victims, how shallow and ignorant of humanity do you have to be to think that that person is celebrating death? That person is celebrating life. By acting out, exploring, and faking death, suffering, and pain, you are affirming life. You're saying, I'm a healthy 14-year-old, and this has not happened to me. All horror movies, all scary movies are an affirmation of life. And some magicians decide that the way they should sell their cheesy little shows is by saying someone could actually get hurt. Someone could actually be injured tonight. If you are coming to our show to see us actually injured, fuck you. We are doing our show to celebrate life, to celebrate health, to celebrate art. We are not doing our show. If you want to see someone really hurt, there are sports that advertise that. I mean, I don't know anything about sports, but I think people get really hurt in NASCAR and some sorts of fighting and stuff. I want nothing to do with that. No one should ever get hurt, ever. Certainly not for entertainment. When they had an article that said way back when they made Die Hard 2 or something, someone wrote that, 280 people died in this when the plane crashed. Well, I looked it up, and nobody was hurt making Die Hard 2. Nobody was hurt. It was the depiction of violence. People are not hurt in video games. It's the depiction of violence. This all adds up to the fact that we do the bullet catch in our show, where we won't be doing it on Broadway. We do it in Vegas, where people come up to the audience, they examine guns, they're real guns, real bullets, sign them, and then they're shot through glass, and we catch them in our teeth. Now, this is famously the most dangerous trick in show business. At least a dozen people, it's more than that now, have died on stage doing this trick. And the temptation, not to us, but to people around us, not our immediate team, but people that come in to advertise us, is to say, Penn and Teller are doing the most dangerous trick that's ever happened. Come see the show. They're on the razor's edge here. Well, no, we won't let them advertise like that. First of all, we do the trick safely. There are many, many safeguards. We will not die doing the bullet catch. We will not be injured. When people come to our show, we are trying to make the visceral and the intellectual crash as violently as possible. That is the purpose of all art, but certainly magic, and probably the purpose of all life, is to get the visceral and the intellectual to go. When you get on a roller coaster, your guts tell you you're going to die, and your intellect tells you, well, if they killed everybody that went on this, their insurance rates would be too high. And those two things are supposed to happen. So what we're asking you to do is come to our theater, see us do things, I mean, even like the needles is a good example, that appear to be very dangerous and very macabre, but and I'll say this proudly because this is the biggest brag we have. Other magicians, they get hurt, and people working with them get hurt. In 40 years, no one working with Penn and Teller in any way, shape, or form has ever been injured. Now, by injured, I mean a hospital stay overnight. I mean, you can't say you haven't, no, really, but you can't say you haven't, gotten a blister on your finger or hit your knee a couple times, but nothing you would call an injury that would happen greater than would happen in an office setting of people doing a regular job. We're really proud of that because we're asking you to come to our show on Broadway, and if you knew that sometime in the past there had been some sort of serious injury to one of us or someone that worked with us, some of that joy and that celebration of life would go away. We're asking you to celebrate health and life by looking at death and danger. And that's what everybody working in the arts and doing this stuff is. So I'd like to say to Hillary Clinton and Arnold Schwarzenegger and everyone else that comes out against this stuff, hey, the kids are all right. This is safe stuff.
At the same time, though, Teller, have you ever been concerned for an audience member who just looks like they're on edge watching you? Has there been a reaction from an audience member in the past that you've felt like?
Once in a while after our show, when we do actually, this show is sort of heavy in classics. We do Saw a Woman into Halves, our Vegas show person, Georgie Bernasek. And once in a while, I will have a child come up a parent come up afterwards and say, reassure little Bobby that she's okay.
Sure.
And I'll say, yes, she's absolutely fine. We sent her home in 2 taxis.
You know, we had.
I have no need to coddle.
We had a real hero who came to our show. This was on Broadway way back. We were doing a thing, The Water Tank, where Teller apparently drowns in a tank of water while I'm doing a card trick. He's not going to breathe until I finish the card trick, and then of course I screw up the card trick, and he drowns, and he's floating there in the tank for a while drowning. And I always think of this person as the ideal audience member. We did it right before intermission, so we could leave Teller dead through the intermission, and leave him on stage just floating in the tank. And right when we started the bit, a woman left the theater rather quickly, and one of the ushers, I never met her, I never talked to her. One of the ushers reported this back to me, that the usher had followed her out, and she was physically very disturbed, trembling and crying a little bit. And the usher went over and asked her if she was okay, and she said that she had had something in her past that made her very, very frightened of drowning and very, very upset by that image. And then she said, but that's a personal thing with me. That has nothing to do with their show. I love these guys. I just didn't want to watch this bit. When I heard that from the usher, I said, let's make her president. You know, this is somebody who understands the difference between what bothers you and what's important for society. And so we sometimes get that reaction. We sometimes get, there are some people that, and for good and sufficient reason, you pull out guns on stage, they're upset. I remember after my mom died, I was watching a Columbo that had a funeral scene in it, and I fell to pieces. That's not the fault of Bill Link, who wrote it, That's just where I happen to be in my life. So yes, sometimes you get people upset, but the kind of people that come to our show understand that that's not something that should be changed in our show. That's just the way that the dice happen to fall. And of course, our sympathy and our hearts go out to them, but you can't stop art because it's going to make some people uncomfortable. There's all sorts of stuff that makes me uncomfortable.
To what extent do you think your interest for both of you, your interest in magic has sort of corresponded to atheism, sort of quest for truth and for what's real out there? Has that always been a part of your interest in what makes magic special? Is there a connection there in any way?
And there's the natural connection of skepticism and atheism. I mean, skepticism leads you to inquire into things that other people take for granted. And skepticism is often tied in with exposure of fraudulence. And exposure of fraudulence is sort of tied to magic, in that magic is the honest version of fraudulence.
Mm-hmm. Almost every culture has a taboo against lying to people in your own tribe. It is a really deep taboo. It's as deep a taboo as, in some ways, deeper taboo than murder or violence. And yet, and this is the thing that kind of Teller had to teach me, because I was really awful about lying. Everybody goes through a phase when they care very much about truth, and I never outgrew that. I almost, I cross over into a certain kind of obsessive problem with it. I mean, I was very upset by people claiming to do science stuff when actually doing magic. I was very upset by that. I was upset by all of that tremendously. And Teller was the one that helped me see that lying is this really odd crime, in that as soon as you put a proscenium around it, it becomes completely moral. You know, if Robert De Niro were to run around New York City saying he was a cab driver named Travis Bickle, that's not true. And that is something that's mentally ill and wrong. But you put it in a movie, it immediately becomes okay. You can take all that stuff away. So I am very offended by anybody that takes what we do inside the proscenium and spills it outside of the proscenium. And to somebody who is as strong an atheist as I am, that is anybody working in religion, anybody working in any of the kind of stuff around there that use those kinds of techniques. So for me, I was so anti-religion and so anti-fraud that I was also anti-magic until Teller kind of took me by the hand and taught me that that there was a way to do what he loved morally. And you could almost say that one of the themes of our entire career is how to do things that are essentially wrong in a way that makes them totally right. We did a thing on Broadway, which we're not doing this time. We're doing something similar to it, but we did a mentalism trick, you know, supposedly reading minds and predicting the future. And everybody would tell you, and they will still tell you, that in order to do that kind of magic, you have to leave some doubt. You have to say, well, I'm not really reading your mind, but I can read body language, or I use tricks of psychology, that you couldn't really do a trick that left no doubt. You couldn't just say, this is a trick. But we have a rule now that we try to follow, and we are sometimes not fully successful because it's such a difficult rule. But I think that sawing a woman into halves is the benchmark for magic in terms of truth-telling. You saw a woman into halves on stage, and everyone in the audience, even though they're startled at the time, everyone who leaves the audience, and we're doing some sort of rules on this. I mean, young children have to be helped by their parents, and there would be people who are perhaps mentally ill that you can't be responsible for. But everybody leaves the theater knowing deep in their hearts that no one was injured during that particular trick. And that's the way all magic must be performed in my ideal world. So if I'm going to do a trick, which I will be doing on Broadway, where people think of a joke and I'm able to tell the punchline of the joke, of any joke they pick, I have to make sure when they leave the theater that they don't think that anything other than a trick happened. So I can't go with memorization, I can't go with body language, I can't go with any of this. And that experiment in how to present tricks completely honestly, I think comes directly from atheism and skepticism. And although the word atheism is in this particular Broadway show never said. No, we never say atheism and never deal with the issue of atheism. It's become so deep in the actual form, not just the content, but the actual form of what we're doing, that I do believe that that even though we've never said we're atheists, at the end of the show you might get an inkling. We have said it other places, just not in this.
Let me just read this great quote that I read of yours, Penn, recently in an interview. You said, talking about your early days here in New York. You said,
is this the thing about the Mexicans being rapists?
No.
Because I was quoted out of context. I made very clear that some Mexicans might be okay. So please buy my ties, for Christ's sake.
No.
Oh, different quote.
This is a quote that says, "We were carny trash doing fairs and festivals and our show here and there, and we came out to New York with no optimism whatsoever." And that evocative phrase, carny trash, sort of stuck with me a little bit in the sense that, and in the tricks that you just did here, there's something fundamentally interesting and exciting about a very simple magic trick with just some cups and some balls, as opposed to something bigger with lights and an elephant or something. And I'm just wondering if you could talk about those carny days and something, look back at a trick that you did back then that was very, very simple maybe a card trick or something that really, I don't know, to me at least, is kind of in some ways more exciting than something that's really sort of
Well,
big
I mean, we had a good example with Needles. I mean, Needles. Would play perfectly well in the Carney, and it plays perfectly well on a Broadway theater. I mean, as a matter of fact, what makes that'll be part of our Broadway show. What makes that so great is that when Teller does it, did it in a carnival setting, in a fair setting, in a Renaissance festival setting, it was too classy for that setting. And when he does it on Broadway, it's just as classy, but also the wrong subject matter. And the fact that that bit transcends Carney and Broadway and does something else is, I think, exactly what you're talking about. I mean, that is the fact that, one of our friends said that she was asked if we changed from when we were playing outdoor festivals to when we were on Broadway the first time, if there was a change. And her answer, which I heard from someone else, was that we didn't change at all because when we were playing the carnival, we thought that our shows were the most important things in the world. And we were very, very full of ourselves and very obsessed with every little detail of the show. And I really believe that venue has never mattered to us. I'm as proud as a matter of fact, Teller said the other day that my crowd gathering, my street show, he thought was the best thing I've ever done. He doesn't think we've ever hit that level again. I used the term carny trash, but the stuff that we did in outdoor fairs when we were completely unknown and when we were doing shows outside, it was, we were playing like somewhere in South Carolina, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Some
Carowinds, I think.
Some Six Flags type place, and it was outdoors, and they didn't have seats, and they didn't have any sort of shade. It was 105 degrees, and we had people who were watching our show and passing out from the heat because they wanted to stay and watch us. I mean, I'm much prouder of that than people staying through a show when they're sitting in an air-conditioned theater and they're comfortable and they've already dropped a couple $100, you know. That was really good stuff, and people would ask us, you know, if we're proud to be on Broadway or proud to have a theater, our own theater in Las Vegas, and yes, we are. We don't want to seem ungrateful about that, but the stuff that's always mattered to us is the material. And, there's a story I tell in one of my books that is probably the time I respected Teller the most. You know, we went to see Alan and Rossi. They were playing at Trump, of all places. They're changing their name too, I imagine, in Atlantic City. And we were headlining in the room, and there was a lounge. And Alan and Rossi, who were a big comedy act on Ed Sullivan in the 60s, they were doing the lounge. And so when we played the showroom, it was closed off and lights and, you know, drinks weren't served and so on. And they were playing a lounge, which means you can hear the slot machines the whole time they're working. And people are doing drinks. And some people wouldn't even be facing the stage. And they were out there with a little television that was showing some of the clips from them on Ed Sullivan. And they were playing for probably maybe 100 people, maybe fewer. And we were watching them, and they were doing their bits from Ed Sullivan. And as I was watching, there were some people who would have found that sad, maybe, or pathetic that they had been there. And I turned to Teller in the middle of the act, you know, and I said, this not only could be us, this will be us in a few years. And Teller paused for a second and said, I'm so okay with that. And I mean, that's Teller at his best.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are terrified of the fact they're at this level of their career and they're going to go down. We intend to just, you know, taper right off. We'll be playing the Penn and Teller Theater now, but eventually we'll be playing, you know, flea markets and carnivals again. And we're thrilled to pieces with that. That's okay.
The main difference between doing streets and doing Broadway is with Broadway, you pass the hat first.
Well,
So in a certain way, you don't have to be quite as good.
Teller, in your early days here in New York, did you learn from the street, from the three-card Monte guys? Was that a learning experience for you?
No, I mean, I didn't grow up in New York. I grew up in a little southern town called Philadelphia. No, there's really nothing to be learned from those people. They're thugs.
Okay.
They're thugs pulling a criminal scam.
Got it.
You can watch, and you watch them, particularly taking European tourists or taking people who underestimate the intelligence of races other than their own, and you go, this is just wrong. There's nothing to be learned really from that, because it's easy to lie to somebody. It's difficult to lie to somebody if you say, I'm about to tell you a lie. I mean, in the show that we're doing, we say we are going to pull a rabbit out of a hat, and then we do that. Now that's a very difficult lie. It's very, if you walk into the room and you have a large hat, and I say, oh, hi, how are you? I could sneak my rabbit into that hat, and it's very easy, and then you're readily deceived because I haven't warned you. With the rabbit out of the hat, we tell you right ahead of time, and then we still do it. It's part of this tendency we have to take on the hardest tricks in magic. Because I believe there's nobody in this room who has ever actually seen a magician actually pull a rabbit out of a hat. I was having a conversation with a British magician, and he said, that's a much harder trick than people know. I've never seen it. Penn has never seen it. And as we talked to people, they said, oh, I've seen a rabbit produced. Yes, but not really from a hat. It's a person pulls silk handkerchiefs out, and then eventually they'll pull a rabbit out of that. And so we took that on as our little challenge. Could we pull a rabbit out of a hat?
And those three-card Monte guys, if you don't fall for the scam, they just take you into an alley and beat you and take your money.
Yeah.
And there's this whole kind of glorification of the con that happens that I find sickening. The pickpockets are not good. They use razors. They cut people's clothing and just steal stuff. The people who run the cons that Mamet writes about so wonderfully, those don't exist in the real world. It is bullying the elderly. That's what those cons really are when they're done. And there's all this, you can't cheat an honest man, and they're doing this, and they're showing. There's nothing noble about what they're doing, and there's nothing connected whatsoever to what we do. Even though we might use the word lie and cheat and con in a kind of an ironic way, we are honest in our show. We learned a lot from street performers. We learned a lot from carnival performers. I used to go, Teller and I, when we were out in Minnesota, we'd go to the Minnesota State Fair, and there was the waterless cookware guys who would sell the waterless pots and pans, with the mic draped around. They just tie the mic cord around their neck and have the mic here and do, 40 or 50 shows a day talking about the wonders of this cookware. And those are the people I wanted to learn to talk like. Those are the people I would memorize whole hunks of their patter, and we would go and we'd try to put our shows together, so I tried to sound like those people. I didn't want to sound like a stand-up comedian. I wanted to sound like the guy selling waterless cookware. So those people we learned a lot from.
And it's very good cookware.
I want to make sure that we leave some time for questions. We're going to get some mics set up, so if you do have a question, make sure you head to the mic and we'll get to that. But first, I just wanted to ask you guys, are you friends off stage? Do you hang out after? No, not so much. No?
Not much. We probably go out socially twice a year. Maybe we see a movie or something like that. But it just turns out, it's been 40 years, it turns out that that respect is more durable than affection. And when Tel and I first met, there was no sort of cuddly friendship that happened. It was always very, very intellectual, trying to do good stuff. So consequently, I think Lennon and McCartney fell in love, and Gilbert and Sullivan fell in love. Certainly Martin and Lewis fell in love. And then the first time things aren't good, it's heartbreaking. We've only cared about the show. We've always wanted to do the show the best we could. Now, that being said, when my children were born, Teller was the first one in to meet them. And when our parents died, we were the first ones each other talked to. I mean, over the years, you know, my daughter, Moxie, who's somewhere here, was very concerned because she wanted to make sure that, you know, Teller was my BFF. And that had to be clear to her. And she's right, Teller is. I mean, over those years, we have become very close friends. But we don't socialize much because what we care about is the show.
Yeah.
And also, if you're very good friends with somebody, you may be afraid to fight with them. And I don't believe it's worth having a creative partner if the creative partner agrees with you. I mean, you really must find someone who is going to take you someplace where you are not going to go. You might not even be willing to go, but who can struggle and get to the better idea instead of just the one that's very easy to accommodate.
Sure. Why don't we start taking questions from the audience? Why don't we start over here, please?
Thank you. First, my name is Bobby, and I can assure you that I knew the lady was going to be okay. Second, so many of your tricks you reveal right after doing them, like the cups and balls tricks. Others, like Teller's shadow trick, you guard with absolute secrecy. I was always wanted to ask you, how do you decide which tricks to reveal and which tricks to guard with your life, and what kind of things go into consideration when you make that decision?
We don't really guard them with our lives. You know, when we move into a theater, there are magicians who will make the stagehands sign agreements, you know, that say, "Oh, I'll never reveal this trick." I always tell them, most of the audience will enjoy the show more if you don't tell them how the thing is done. And if you decide to tell them how the thing is done, just make sure that you get plenty of money or sex in exchange for it. But the things that we do reveal are things that we design to be revealed. The cups and balls didn't start off as us doing a cups and balls routine and then saying, "Oh, we'd like to reveal how this is done." It started off with us going, you know, the cups and balls is such a strong, has such strong misdirection built into the physicality of it that we think you could even do this trick with clear plastic cups and people would still find it sort of dazzling. And that's where that trick started. And then we thought, well, you can't really say to an audience, well, we're fascinated by the fact that there's a sort of counterpoint going on between the visible and the hidden. You know, that's just not our style. More our style is, we're going to show you how this trick is done. You know.
We also, there's a bigger lie, which is the way you make a trick really deceptive is to make it ugly. You know, in physics, a lot of people believe that the truth can be seen by beauty. They want, you know, Einstein was obsessed with all the answers being beautiful. And we have that built into us. So if you've got a trick, if we have a trick that has a wonderful method, like we really love how clever we are with the method, we're not going to use that. You're going to get busted right away because people are looking for beautiful. So what we do is the tricks we give away really beautiful, choreographed, clever answers, and then the tricks we really want to fool you with are gaffer's tape and a lie. And then you believe that everything's beautiful, so we lead you down the garden path that way. So that's how we decide. We write them to be that way.
Thank you.
Sir, over here.
Good evening, gentlemen. Segue slightly. Having been a contributor of Making Penn Bad, I have a quick question. How goes the movie?
Movie is going really well. I did a crowdfunding thing for a movie I wrote called Director's Cut that I'm also in, and Teller's in too. Teller's the biggest speaking role in the movie. He has more lines in it than I do. And we crowdfunded it, and it is now going into color correction and sound mixing. And I think it came out pretty good. You know, Adam Rifkin's really, really good. And you'll be getting a whole barrage of more information soon. And it's been submitted to the Toronto Film Festival. We haven't heard yet, but we're getting some very nice reaction on it. So thank you.
Thanks.
Sir.
Hello. Could you tell us about your collaboration with Polomopolis, how that creative process worked?
Well, Polomopolis came to us. They're the great dance group, fabulous dance group. They came to us and asked us to collaborate with them. We said yes. I mean, it's really as simple as that. It was just a wonderful opportunity. You know, we decided to with them to dig into escapology, you know, and
Because
people.
that's the sexiest kind of magic.
And because people that do that kind of, because it is sexy, people that do that kind of stuff that have the knowledge to know how to do it usually don't have the physicality. So the idea of us having the knowledge and being able to work with people in their 20s who are in the best shape of anybody we've ever seen, you know, they in between rehearsals, they're doing like, you know, handstand push-ups and stuff. They can do anything. And what's really funny about working with them on that stuff was that some of the things we were going to design as tricks, they could just do. We would come to them and say, here's a way you can, you know, rip out of this gaffer's tape wrapped around you a whole roll, and they would just go, and you know, the woman in the thing, we taped her completely to a chair with gaffer's tape, and she just went, which we had already checked with people we knew in the military who said, no, you can't pull out a gaffer's tape, you don't have the like that. So being able to work with people that were that strong and that beautiful and that sexy and be able to get our ideas translated that way was just amazing. If you ever get a chance to see it, they call it the Escape Key, ESC, and Polobolis is doing it, and we're really, really proud of it. And it's just amazing to be able to see what you can do with that kind of raw control, talent, and strength, and then just add a little bit of trickery here and there. It was pretty great.
And I also had the great pleasure of working with Polobolis on designing some movement for my version of The Tempest that we played first in Vegas, then in Boston at ART, and then in California. And now it's moving to Chicago Shakespeare in September. But we came to them with the idea of making Caliban not just one person, but making Caliban out of a composite of human beings. And we went up to their retreat and started off with 5 people and worked down to 4, 3, and to 2. And now our Caliban is 2 guys who just function as one human being. And you know, they move like a spider. They're really extraordinary.
Thank you.
Sir.
Hi, guys. My question is about your Showtime show, Bullshit. And growing up, I was never a big fan of magic either, but I became, I think, one of your biggest fans when I started watching the show. So my question is, do you guys have a favorite episode, each of you, and maybe perhaps comment on why?
Well, you know, the funniest episode is the bottled water, I think, which is, I just wanted to kind of flaunt my hypocrisy here. And I think that the one that was kind of the most surprising, where we found out the most, was the PETA episode, where we were so shocked when the researchers came to us. We thought they were lying to us. It was just amazing stuff they found about kind of the nonsense and horror that is PETA. But when all is said and done, the one that I'm the most proud of, I think, is our bullshit on anti-vaccination. We had to do a double negative there because we do bullshit. We're going to do bullshit vaccinations. We had to do bullshit anti-vaccinations. And as that's become, you know, as we've got a boy in Spain dying of diphtheria and whooping cough being in developing countries and in Beverly Hills, it's just horrible. I don't know if we did any good, but it's the one that I think I'm the most proud of and happiest we did. And we had to really, really fight for it. Showtime said that we couldn't do a anti-vaccination show and make it sexy. So we promised them we'd find a woman with larger breasts than Jenny McCarthy who would explain real science while topless. So we won.
Sir, over here, please.
Penn, I was really touched by a number of years ago that when you did basically a webcast or a web video when a gentleman handed you a Bible at one of your shows. And what I was curious about is knowing what you know about science and know what you know about morality, and if God did exist, what would it take for you to believe in him?
One tiny shred of evidence. a little tiniest read. This has been answered by so many better people than me. Richard Feynman answered it beautifully. I encourage everyone to check Richard Feynman's answer about what he would say if he were to meet God afterwards. Also, Stephen Fry has a wonderful answer to that. Neither one that I can do better. But it was pretty amazing doing bullshit, because what it gave me was, one of the things it gave me was huge respect for Christians. And I must confess, when we pitched bullshit, I pitched it a little bit cynically. I had some cynicism, which I always hate in myself and always try to fight it. I think cynicism is the worst of us. But I did have some cynicism, because I said, people will watch it just to hate us, just to disagree with us. And we bragged to Showtime that, people would dislike the show and write us letters, and we get a lot of hate mail. And we did get an awful lot of letters that disagreed with us. But the letters were so incredibly kind. We did a brutal show on the Bible and a brutal show on Christianity, and would get all these letters from people saying, I disagree with you, I'm a follower of Christ, I hope you find Christ in your life, but I love your sincerity, I love how funny you were, I love that you're searching, I love that you're interested in this, and I really love your show. And I felt so guilty and so little for thinking that we would get hate mail. There's a thing that I guess everybody does, but I'm more aware of it in the atheist community, where, Trey Parker, who's, by the way, not an atheist, but falls in that kind of broad category of non-traditional theist, where Trey Parker and Richard Dawkins will brag on their death threats. These are the people that said this crazy stuff to us, and act like that's an argument. And I used to engage in that, and I now feel so guilty about it, because what you're really talking about is mentally ill people. People that do the really bad things in a movement are not indicative of that movement. People that cross that line in discourse and actually turn to violence are morally wrong, no matter who they're speaking for. And celebrating the fact that someone on the other side has done something atrocious is, I believe, morally wrong. And one of the things I've learned is that the Christians that come to our show, the Christians that follow bullshit, are really, really kind and loving and wonderful and open-minded. And one of the things we learned from doing bullshit is the idea of America in the Constitution and freedom of speech, that you can have a marketplace of ideas. Well, God damn it, it's really working. And although a lot of the media will try to, for sensationalism, and as they should, show this horrible fighting and show the worst on both sides, the vast majority of people are really open to ideas and exchanging ideas. So this all comes down to a podcast I did where I talked about a man who came up and gave me a Bible after the show, which of course, by doing that and talking about this publicly, I now have, I believe, the world's largest collection of Bibles. But I would say 2 or 3 times a week at our show, because we meet everybody after the show, I get Bibles or tracts or books that are important to people. And I'm always taken by how much they're given to me in sincerity. And I don't read the Bibles they give me, because I'm almost constantly reading the Bible. I like to look through it. It's an important part of our culture and our literature. And I don't read all the stuff of, the life after death stuff and the near-death experience stuff, because I just don't have very much hope that I'm going to find something new in it. But I would love, I can't say that. I can't say I would love to believe in God, because as my friend Christopher Hitchens said, wanting to believe in God is a little like wanting to live in North Korea. I do like my freedom very much, but I'd like to think that if I was given compelling evidence, I would be open to that, and then I'm looking for it. I'm certainly, with Amazing Randy, as open as possible to ESP and stuff like that. But you've got to have some evidence, and I got to tell you, there is a certain amount of fatigue after you've run down the same blind alley many, many times. So that's where I am there.
So I'm afraid we have time for just one more question.
So if yours isn't the best, let someone else
Oh, it's
ask
the best.
Okay.
first of all, I want to say it's a pleasure to have listened to the two of you tonight.
Okay.
And my question goes in a sort of different...
Don't be so dejected as you walk away. Don't put your head down. That was heartbreaking.
Sorry.
No, but go ahead.
That's okay. My question goes in a different direction. I'm curious what your family said when you went to them and said you were going to be a magician. And did you, in fact, when you were playing the carnivals and such, did you ever have second thoughts and sort of second-guess your decision?
I was a high school Latin teacher, which I loved. I really did enjoy it. And when Penn called me and suggested the possibility that I might spend a summer doing magic, I was all for it. And then he revealed to me that that would continue through the end of October. And I said, oh, well, that's when school starts. And then he talked to me a little bit more about the possibilities there. And so very prudently, I took a year's leave of absence, right? Because I knew that if I were starving in an alley in a year, it would be nice to be able to come back to my teaching job, which I did enjoy. I wasn't starving in an alley, and I also knew within a couple of weeks that this really was the thing I wanted to do. My parents were always incredibly supportive. I was an only child, wildly indulged in every way. And they really just said, well, I remember what my father said. My father said, you're always going to be all right. You're always going to be all right. Knowing that whatever I chose to do, I'd find some way to make a living at. And my mother sort of looked concerned, but was very, well, you've made a good plan there. You can always go back to teaching if it doesn't work out. Yeah.
We
have. We've sawn me in half many times. The particular way that we're doing this is partly a satire on everything that you've seen with women being sawn in half, and it's also the fact that I confess I'm 67 years old and perhaps not as flexible as I was in the days when I got sawn in half.
And my parents were supportive, but the first person I ever met in show business was me. I'm from a small town. I didn't see anything. So my dad and my mom were very, very supportive, but I have no idea what they were supporting. Nor did I. I didn't know. My dad said, you think you can be Johnny Carson. That's what he thought when I said show business. He wasn't aware there were all sorts of tiers and that you could make a good living without being famous. He didn't know that was possible because people he knew of were famous, right? I mean, it's kind of a self-selected thing. So, but they were, I think, the two best parents in the world that I ever met were Teller's parents, except for mine, who were just a little bit better. They were very, very supportive and very, very, and very wonderful. And I'm glad that they all lived long enough to see our first two runs on Broadway. They're not going to see this one, but they saw the first two.
Thank you very much.
So we actually have one more trick coming up.
What are you going to insist? Go ahead, insist. What do you got? Okay.
Okay.
I'm concerned about the future of the art of magic because what you see a lot of in the last 10 years is a lot of wham bam, thank you ma'am, cotton candy that you just eat and it disappears and you don't care. You guys have always been great because of the writing, because you understand the anticipation, the psychology, what it takes to, you see Teller do the needles, and I've seen a lot of people do the needles. You see Teller do the needles, you never forget it because it's the way.
Yeah, but the
so
thing
is there a bridge being built when young people come to you, or do they care about that now?
Yeah, I mean, that's always true in every form, You're going to get stuff that you really like and really speaks to you in every form. I mean, that's the big mistake we make. Stuff from a long time ago always looks better because we're cherry picking what's out of that. During Houdini's day, there weren't any better magicians than there are now. Most of them sucked. And Houdini had something we remember there. So it's just, I believe that's just an illusion of getting older. That has nothing to do with what magic's really doing.
So
We're going to do another trick?
Well, actually, just quickly, tell me about some other things you've got coming up. You got your Broadway show. You've got some other.
Oh yeah, we should talk.
Sharknado? Do I hear you? Have
We're in Sharknado 3.
Sharknado.
And that, you know, that's funny because
it's
every
called,
other question people asked us about why we did anything, our whole career has been leading up to Sharknado 3.
And I think it's called Sharknado 3. Oh hell no.
Oh hell no. Okay. And we're also our show Fool Us. If you want to know if you want to see some great young magicians, the next generation, starting Monday on CW, we will have plenty of magicians, a lot better than us, doing a lot cooler shit. So check that out.
Okay, one more trick.
Okay, we're gonna do another trick. Now this is one. I'm afraid we don't remember this one completely, so we may stumble through it a bit. This is a weird one because this is one that really is about how magic's put together. You know, what you want to do is you kind of monkey with the memories that we have inside our heads and our imagination a little bit. And I want to ask you, do you wear contact lenses? Yeah, you right here. Oh, come up here on stage. What's your name, please? Michelle, right up here, Michelle. You're going to kind of come around here. We'll bring you up on stage. Yeah, you have to. I think you have to kind of come around here, Michelle. And Michelle, this is Teller. Teller, this is Michelle. Right over here, just you stand. We're going to put you between us, so you stand right next to Teller on that side, and I'll come over here if you excuse me. Now, Michelle, now that you're on stage here and the lights are kind of in your eyes, it's kind of hard to see where but you have a memory of your seat, you know, where you were sitting, who's sitting around you, what they're wearing, all that kind of stuff. That's all that inside your head. And we're going to kind of monkey with the stuff remembering your head. But during this bit, we're going to ask you to close your eyes a few times. And some of those times, to make sure you keep your eyes shut, we're going to put our fingertips on your eyelids. Is that too creepy for you?
No.
It's certainly creepy, just not too creepy, right? Yeah. Well, let's give it a try. Face front, and just close your eyes. We'll put our fingertips just like that. Is that too creepy? Yeah, it's creepy. Yeah, it's creepy. You can open your eyes there. You can open your eyes there, Michelle. And Michelle, when I say close your eyes, I suggest you do it right away because we're coming in.
Okay.
And if you don't, it turns into a Three Stooges routine, and you're standing right in the great Curly Howard spot there. Now, this trick is going to happen. There'll be no more magic. We're not going to do any more magic for you. The only magic in this room will happen inside Michelle's head. So please, all of you, try to watch the next few tricks from right inside Michelle's head, okay? I want you to examine this ring. Just make sure it's a solid ring there. You can just kind of monkey around with it a little bit. And then just so you know where it is, put it right around my neck. Would you please just put the ring right around it? Yeah, right around my neck there, so you know right where it is. Now face the audience. Now we're going to start monkeying with you, Michelle. Put your hands out just like this so they're touching, just like that, okay, Michelle? We're going to rub our fingers right down your arms just like that. So now just where you are. Okay? Now close your eyes, Michelle, close your eyes. One fingertip on each eyelid, one fingertip on the back of each hand. Now, Michelle, you can feel our fingertips on the back of your hands. Tell us on the back of your right hand. I'm right over here on your left, Michelle, okay? So, Michelle, I want you to imagine our fingertips touching the backs of your hands. Imagine our hands. Imagine our wrists. Then just reach out and hold our wrists. Tell her with your right hand, me with your left. Hold our wrists. And get a good grip, nice and strong, but leave your elbows loose so we can move around a little bit. Now, Michelle, you'll be able to imagine this really easily. You'll be able to hear it and feel it. You'll be able to hear and feel Teller reaching across. He's grabbing the ring that put around my neck, okay? I want you to imagine this next thing, Michelle. It's impossible, but I still want you to imagine it.
Okay.
I want you to imagine that Teller rips the ring through my neck, which you're going to do in just a moment, and then links it onto this arm. Now, this is impossible, okay? It's physically impossible to rip the ring through my neck. It's biologically impossible. And it's topologically impossible to link it onto this arm as long as you keep holding this wrist. Okay, Michelle? So it's impossible, but imagine it. Imagine he rips the ring through my neck and links it onto your arm. Feel that, Michelle? You can open your eyes there, Michelle. Open your eyes. Is that solid there, Michelle? Totally solid? Totally unbroken?
Yes.
It's going to get a little weirder, Michelle. It's going to get a little weirder, Michelle, okay? Here we go again, Michelle. Close your eyes, Michelle. Close your eyes. Now you got one fingertip on each eye. We're holding one of each of your hands. Now, Michelle, take your right hand, reach across and grab the ring and slide it off your arm there, Michelle. Now, I'm not going to let go of your arm for even a second. Hold it tightly. Now, Michelle, bring that ring above your left arm and tap it right above the elbow and tap it a couple times above your left arm. Bring it above your left, just tap it, yeah. You can bend this elbow a little bit, yeah. Don't be so rigid. Okay, now it's really easy to imagine that ring, isn't it? Because you're holding it and you're also tapping it against your arm.
Right.
Now raise it a few inches above your arm and hold it there. Now in just a moment, Michelle, I'm going to count to 3. Right after I count to 3, right on the next beat, I want you to let go of that ring. Let it fall completely. It's going to feel weird, Michelle, because you're going to expect that ring to hit this arm, but it won't.
Okay.
Instead, imagine this, Michelle. The bottom of the ring will open up, it'll suck this arm in, and then it'll heal up. When you drop that ring, you will link it onto this arm without me letting go of this wrist. And if you people can watch this from inside Michelle's head, this may be the biggest miracle you experience tonight. You're going to drop it right after 3, Michelle. Ready? And 1, 2, 3, drop. Feel that, Michelle? Feel that, Michelle?
Yeah.
Open your eyes there, Michelle. Open your eyes. Is that solid there, Michelle? Totally unbroken, Michelle? Face the audience, Michelle. One more, Michelle. One more. Close your eyes there, Michelle. Close your eyes. Take the ring in both hands there, Michelle. Take the ring in both hands. Get a sense of it there, Michelle. Just hold it right there. Now, Michelle, keep holding the ring with your right hand. Let go with your left hand. And bring your hand up and cover your own eyes with your hand. No, with your left hand, yeah. Cover your own, replace our fingers, yeah. Now, you've created a solid ring of flesh from your face to your hand, to your wrist, to your arm, to your elbow, to your arm, to your neck, to your face. It's a solid ring. There's no way we could link anything onto this arm while this hand is against this face. Is that right, Michelle? Michelle may have the ring. Now imagine this, Michelle. 1, 2, 3. Feel that, Michelle? Open your eyes there, Michelle. Open your eyes. You have a sense of where I am? Sense of where Teller is? Sense of where That's Michelle right there. That's Michelle. My name is Penn, my partner Teller. We're Penn and Teller. Thanks a lot. Good night.